Hey everybody, it's Matt Mayoko at NBC Sports Bay Area. This video is brought to you by Canyon Club Brewery. It's a brewery, it's a restaurant, a beer garden, all in the very family-friendly atmosphere in Moraga, California, right down the street from where I live, and also very close to the St. Mary's College campus. St. Mary's, by the way, opened their basketball season on Monday night. I was there, as I am for every St. Mary's College basketball home game when I'm not traveling with the 49ers or to cover the 49ers, I should say. I don't travel on the team plane, but I travel commercial. And so, anyway, back to Canyon Club. It's a great place. They're a provider, by the way, of beverages at the St. Mary's College basketball games. So check it out. It's coming soon to the Livery in Danville. I'm sure if you go, you will see me there because I will be there quite often, I am sure. Okay, so this was the trading deadline day around the NFL, and the window opened last week with some deals being done around the league. It really heated up on Monday and Tuesday, and right before the trading deadline, the 49ers make a deal, not the kind of trade perhaps that maybe some people were expecting. Not like the big splash of a year ago with Chase Young coming to the team, not like the big splash of 2 years ago when Christian McCaffrey was added. But this is a kind of under the radar player, something I didn't expect the 49ers to go out and make this huge splash, but I did expect them to look at the defensive line, and that's exactly what they did with the acquisition of Khalil Davis. Now, he's a 28-year-old defensive tackle. He comes over from the Houston Texans. Not a whole lot of transition for him moving to the 49ers because, of course, the defensive coordinator for the 49ers previously is now the head coach of the Houston Texans. That's D'Amico Ryan. So Khalil Davis, he's bounced around, kind of an under the radar guy. He just signed through this season at a very low amount. So 49ers send a 2026 seventh round draft pick to get Khalil Davis for the remainder of this season. And so, like I said, he's bounced around. He entered the league in 2020 as a sixth round pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so since then, he was started out at Tampa Bay, went to Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, back to Tampa Bay, to the Rams, to the Birmingham Stallions of the USFL. And then he signed last year in August of 2023 with the Houston Texans, and he appeared in 15 games last season, had a couple of sacks. He's appeared in their 9 games this year, has 1 sack, 172 defensive snaps. So, how I see him fitting in with the 49ers is all part of that defensive line rotation, where their starters right now are Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott. So, I see Khalil Davis fitting in along with Kalia Davis and Kevin Givens and Evan Anderson, the rookie. And then they do expect Yetur Gross-Matos back sometime soon. So for the Niners, I haven't yet heard, but I did get the trade confirmed, but I haven't heard yet what their plan is as far as creating the roster spot for him. Now, I think part of the reason the 49ers didn't feel like they had to make a big splash or get somebody maybe with a higher profile than Khalil Davis is because of the players they have coming back. They really did view their injury list as kind of their trade deadline moves. And so on Monday, they opened the practice windows and designated for return running back Christian McCaffrey, offensive lineman John Feliciano. McCaffrey and Feliciano could very well be, or I would even go so far as to say I would expect them to be in uniform Sunday when the 49ers face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 10. Um, McCaffrey, I'm sure will start and we'll see a lot of action. And then John Feliciano, more than likely a backup offensive lineman, backup at guard, backup at center, probably won't get on the field this season unless there's an injury at one of those spots. And so he would be a very reliable backup player. But also, in talking about the trade deadline and what the 49ers believe they will be adding soon to their roster, Yetur Gross Matos. So there's your guy on the defensive line who can play outside on base downs, move inside to rush the passer in nickel situations. Also, Dre Greenlaw should be back fairly soon, as well as Talanoa Hufanga. So that's, those are right now McCaffrey, Gross, Matos, Feliciano, Hufanga, and Dre Greenlaw. So all those guys could be back soon off the injury list. So one of the things to keep in mind about, the 49ers, and they've talked a lot about, it had to be the right fit. They have in the past gone out and they've made a lot of trades at the trading deadline with in-season deals. That's why I thought the 49ers would probably swing a trade, because they've been very open to doing that. And what John Lynch said last week on the game plan with Greg Papa, which you see on NBC Bay Area and NBC Sports Bay Area, as well as the 49ers Talk podcast, he says, if we see a fit that can improve our football team, we won't hesitate to get it done. And when you just look at their track record, since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have been with the organization, that's 2017, they've acquired Jimmy Garoppolo, Emmanuel Sanders, Jordan Willis, Charles Omenihu, Christian McCaffrey, Randy Gregory, Chase Young, and now Khalil Davis in-season trades. So they did really look at the trading deadline as not necessarily the urgency of years past, because of all those players that were going to be coming back to the team, or they anticipate will be coming back to the team. Now, around the NFL, there were some much bigger names, especially defensive linemen, who saw themselves being on the trade market and being acquired. The Arizona Cardinals, for instance, on Monday, not necessarily a big name guy, but an edge, Baron Browning. He goes from the Denver Broncos to the Arizona Cardinals. He was a guy that had 5 sacks in 2022, 4.5 sacks last year. This year, no sacks. But, he was somebody that I could look at and see, potentially kind of an under the radar guy the 49ers could acquire. Probably the biggest name was Za'Darius Smith, a defensive end from the Cleveland Browns, and he goes to Detroit. Now, obviously, Detroit had a major hole to fill with the season-ending injury of Aiden Hutchinson, one of the top candidates for NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Za'Darius Smith and a 2026 seventh round pick goes to Detroit for a fifth round pick in this upcoming draft and a sixth round pick in 2026. The other defensive end that kind of raised some eyebrows, Preston Smith from the Green Bay Packers, goes to Pittsburgh for a seventh round pick. So all those guys are veteran guys. Well, as is Khalil Davis, not necessarily a veteran guy, hasn't played a whole lot of football, just 2 games with Tampa in 2020, 1 game with Indianapolis in 2021, and then the last 2 seasons with Houston. But Davis is a 28-year-old player. Going back to Preston Smith, though, I found it interesting that Green Bay very much in the hunt for a playoff spot. In fact, right now they have that 7th spot as far as the wild card. They're in line for that. But they trade, Green Bay does. They trade Preston Smith to Pittsburgh for a 7th round pick. Now, why the reluctance for the 49ers to get involved in this trade market? And I think it has a lot to do with just looking at how the 49ers drafted in this year, the 2024 draft. I mean, they had 7 draft picks, actually 8 draft picks, and 7 of them are currently on the team and suiting up for games and making a contribution. Ricky Pearsall, Renardo Green, Dominic Pooney, Malik Mustafa, Isaac Garindo, Jacob Cowing, and Tatum Bethune. And of those guys, they all really have prominent roles, except for Bethune. I mean, he's a special teams player, so I guess that's a prominent role. Cowing, of course, is the return specialist for the 49ers. The only player in their draft class who is not on the 49ers team is Jarrett Kingston, who they cut right before training, or right before the start of the regular season, with the idea of bringing him to the practice squad. The Carolina Panthers claimed him, and Jarrett Kingston, the offensive lineman, has been active for the Panthers over the last 3 games. So when the 49ers look ahead to this 2025 draft, right now, they're projected to have 10 draft picks. So they did not touch any of those picks. It was a 7th rounder in 2026 that they gave up. So right now, as you look at it, the 49ers have their own picks in the first, second, and third rounds, as well as a special compensatory pick at the end of the third round for losing D'Amico Ryans to a head coaching position. They also have picks in the fourth, sixth, and seventh, and they are projected, according to overthecap.com, to pick up compensatory picks, one in the fourth round and two in the seventh round. And those are for the losses of Chase Young, Ray McLeod, and who else? One other player, not Sam Darnold. That kind of cancels out, but one other player. They're basically the compensatory picks is you get compensatory picks if you have a net losses in free agents, which the 49ers have the net losses. So should the 49ers have done more? Um, Last year they took a big swing with Chase Young, and I don't know that it really worked out for them. He only had two sacks, during the regular season. He did have a sack, 2.5 sacks in 9 games of the regular season. He did have a sack in the Super Bowl. They did give up a third rounder for him, and I just think that the 49ers felt like they wanted to keep their draft picks for a couple of reasons. They've drafted really well. Um, you know they picked up all those guys that I talked about, and it's really important when you're a team like the 49ers that have so many high-priced players to be able to fold in these rookie players on those contracts that don't take up much cap room. So all those guys I mentioned, starting with Ricky Pearsall and Renardo Green and Dominic Puni and the others, they are locked into the 49ers for 4 seasons this year and 3 more at basically minimum type contracts. So when you look at their salary structure on the team, their salary cap, pretty much those rookies, the guys on the rookie contracts are at the very bottom. And then it's very top heavy with all those other players. And of course, the 49ers will have rising costs with many of their top players who have already signed their big money deals, including Brandon Ayuk, but certainly Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Nick Bosa and Fred Warner and on and on and on. You need, and especially with Brock Purdy due to sign a big money deal in the offseason, 49ers didn't want to just basically give up a draft pick, a highly coveted draft pick for a player that they might only have through the rest of this season. And if they were to add a player who was under contract for coming years, they didn't want to take on that salary. So that's why they did it. The merits could be argued, but ultimately, I kind of figured that this would be the way it would go down, that the 49ers would add somebody, but it wouldn't necessarily be someone recognizable or a big name or anything like that. They're looking for just another rotational piece to give themselves a little bit more depth, having already lost Javon Hargrave for the season. So 49ers pick up Khalil Davis from the Houston Texans, and we'll see what the roster move is, the corresponding roster move, in order to make room for him. And that was another thing too. I mean, in order for them to add McCaffrey and Feliciano and all those other guys, they're going to have to make cuts on their roster in order to fit those other players in. So there will be some roster shuffling for the 49ers in the coming days, and it all starts with Khalil Davis coming over from the Houston Texans. All right, so that's the wrap up. Kind of a busy day of trades around the NFL, and the 49ers did get involved, but maybe not to the degree that I'm sure some in the fan base would have liked them to get involved. But that is the story. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. If you have subscribed, turn on your notifications so you'll be able to tell whenever I post a new video. And like and comment. I try to respond to as many comments as possible. And that's it for now.